that often, and it's because they're messy. They're messy for the team signing them. They're messy for the team that has to say yes or no. And when you say yes, it's potentially really messy. And that's what happened today in a couple hours span with DeAndre Ayton and the Suns. The Pacers signed him to a 4-year, $133 million offer sheet. This, by offer sheet standards, was a very, very clean one. It was, what's the opposite of toxic?
Yeah, this was like, hey, please match this.
Right. The Pacers don't like to do offer sheets. They've done 2 offer sheets now in 40 years. The other one, I can't remember if we talked about it on the pod earlier this week. It would be a good trivia question. Do you guys know who it was?
Chris Copeland, you talked about on the pod earlier this week.
Oh, damn.
Wouldn't McMahon, listen to the pod. Look at that.
And yeah, you also talked about Paulo Banchero being as good a passer as Nikola Jokic, but we're not even going to get into that.
I said that.
It's your podcast. You're responsible for everything here.
Everything that's said on here is attached to me. Well, that's interesting to know. You two are out.
And you, I was going to say, and you still invite bond pimps.
The offer sheet had no player option in it, which typically when you're trying to get a team to not match, you're putting all of the razor blades. Usually there's a player option. Sometimes, there's a trade kicker. Sometimes you mess with the payment schedule. So there's balloon payments due right up early every year, which teams don't like to do.
Sometimes, like with the Mavericks and Chandler Parsons, you do it 3 years with a player option. So just, muck it up even more.
Right.
What do the Pacers gain here? Like, if it
the Suns, in case the people didn't hear, the Suns matched it within, I think Woj said 3 minutes of getting it. They had 48 hours. They matched it in 3 days. By the way, in the old days, I like to keep, this is a new unofficial segment on the podcast. I like to talk about the old days since I'm getting old. Back in the old days, like, teams would hand deliver, not all the time, but teams would hand deliver. They would like fly an executive out to see another executive and say, hey man.
Didn't they have to do that? Because that was what happened with Jeremy Lin in Vegas, where they literally, the Rockets were like hiding so that they couldn't give the Knicks were hiding, so they couldn't do the offer sheet. That's why it became this virtual thing. I thought they had to do that. Didn't they?
You could be right.
Because that was because that was the whole thing with Jeremy Lin. They signed that offer sheet and there was all this stuff where they couldn't actually hand the offer sheet over.
Right. That was like the most toxic offer, one of the most toxic offer sheets ever.
Yeah.
Also, Wesley Matthews signed an offer sheet when he came into the league with Utah, I believe. And Portland came up with this super creative offer sheet where they had to like pay him a whole ton of money, like 15 seconds after he signed it. There's all this toxification. But back in the day, like, sometimes the GMs were a little busy, so they would have like the junior G-men fly out to the other city and they would go to dinner and here's our offer sheet. Thanks. Who's getting the check? Oh, I'll get it. Oh, okay, thanks. And I think in my memory, it might have been a 10-day match.
It was 7 or 14. I think it was a week or 2 weeks. I can't remember which it was.
Can you imagine even 7 days now? It might have been 14, Bontemps.
Yeah. Well, and then in 2017, I reported on this at the time, but when the Nets signed Otto Porter to an offer sheet, Tommy Shepard, the GM of the Wizards, made sure it dragged out for 4 days because you could match at the end of 48 hours. Then you had an extra 2 days to set the physical up and approve the physical. So you could hold the team up for 96 hours, really. And the Suns basically had this last about 96 seconds before they were done.
That's about right.
Right. But after the Pacers made a few, I mean, they're minor little roster moves, but they stretched 3 guys. So they're going to have money on their books the next couple of years. Not a ton, but they will have some money on their books the next couple of years because of this. They waived a guy.
Yeah. It was, not ideal from the Pacers standpoint. So you ask why the Pacers did this. I think because there was some belief, I don't know how much it is. I mean, now it seems laughable because they matched it in 3 minutes, but there was some belief that with the Durant thing hanging out there,
Yeah.
that the Suns, by matching Ayton, they close some doors, they go into the luxury tax. You know, they weren't interested in a sign and trade. Obviously, the Pacers, afraid of a match, would have preferred to do a sign and trade. And from what I understand, they did call and talk about it. And the Suns did not have interest in what they were offering. I believe they offered him Miles Turner. And I don't think the Suns didn't like Miles Turner. I think they thought, well, Miles Turner has 1 year left on his contract, and now he's going to want an extension, and we would have another contract problem. We would just import a contract problem.
And I'll tell you a secret: you wouldn't have to pay him $133 million over 4 years.
Yeah, but maybe they feel Ayton is better than Miles Turner. So,
Oh no, they had planned all along to build around DeAndre Ayton as part of the core, and everything's just roses with DeAndre and the Suns. We're just going to completely forget about the really weird drama between him and Monty Williams at the end of the year. No, I'm sure DeAndre's just, probably looking to buy a new house in Phoenix. He's just comfortable there. I'm sure he won't be looking for a trade at any point. Everything's just great.
Well, I mean, look, obviously we've been waiting to see what was going to happen with the situation, but it's not the first time there's been an acrimonious RFA situation where a guy came back. To me, the far bigger part of this is that, to me, this puts a hammer blow to Phoenix's chances of getting Kevin Durant in any kind of trade, because when you sign a guy to an offer sheet like the Pacers did, you can't trade the guy till January 15th. You can't get traded to Indiana for a year, but that obviously wipes out the Suns being able to use DeAndre Ayton. Obviously, him going to the Brooklyn Nets would be difficult because they're weighing the tax for cap reasons, but it takes a big chip off the board for them from an asset standpoint to try to get something done. And to me, this signals that the fact that they didn't get a sign and trade done and just kept DeAndre, to me, more or less indicates that they decided that one way or the other, they weren't getting Kevin Durant, at least in the short term. And
I'm not sure that they weren't getting him. I think they decided, they have, and by the way, they're not alone. I think they've, how do I want to put this? I think the position that they're taking is that they've made their offer for Kevin Durant, and their offer is their offer. And it's not an offer that the Nets are interested in. And I'm not even sure that the Suns can put together an offer that the Nets would be interested in by themselves. But I think this is where the other teams are too. I think the other teams have said, Brooklyn, here's our offer. And I don't have any incentive to raise our offer because I know nobody else is raising theirs. And I think that's what Indiana was trying to catch him in. Indiana was trying to catch him in that. But I agree, Bontemps. I think this is them partially saying, we're not counting on Kevin Durant. We have a 64-win team. This is going to take us into the tax. By the way, about $15 million into the tax. They're looking at about a $25 million tax payment as of now. But I agree with you. I think, I think if you're a Suns fan, you're probably happy you didn't lose Ayton for nothing, which you were facing for a couple of hours. But if I were the odds makers, I would increase the odds on the Suns getting him right now.
You mean decrease the odds? You said increase the odds on getting him. I assume you meant decrease the odds. Yes.
He thinks it's less
when the
likely
odds
is what it
get
means.
lower, they decrease.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Increase. Got it.
He's
Increase
not-
the odds.
he-
Increase
he's
the
not-
odds. Decrease the chances. It's like
He's not betting on the come of with KD going.
he is
to
he is not
Phoenix.
doing that. But look, I also think this sort of, to your point, Brian, about where the offers are with KD. I think this situation sort of does underscore where this whole Kevin Durant situation is. Like, being in Las Vegas for Summer League for most of the past week, talking to a lot of people there, the general feeling from everybody there was, the Nets don't have a ton of leverage. We're not offering a crazy offer. Kevin Durant's 34. He's had all these injuries. He's owed a ton of money. He's obviously a great player, but he doesn't want to be there. We don't think we need to offer the farm. And I think the Nets are looking at this point, like, to me, we're at the end of Summer League. Everybody's going on vacation. Doesn't mean deals can't get done, but like, this is sort of the end of the typical transaction window. To me, I think the chances increase by the minute that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to be on the Nets this fall, because I just don't see where the offer for Kevin Durant's going to come from out of nowhere now. That's going to change that. And I think as long as Kevin Durant's on the team, Kyrie Irving is going to be too.
Ah, that sound has to make you smile. It's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed, from down the street to around the globe. Reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Synchronize your online and in-person sales. Gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. More than a store, Shopify grows with you. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. So go to shopify.com/hoop, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/hoop right now. Shopify.com/hoop. Starting your own small business can be a total roller coaster. Between all the ups and downs, twists and turns, and highs and lows comes the actual business side of your business, which can really throw you for a loop. Luckily, with QuickBooks, you can get paid, run payroll, and know where your business stands from the start. So no matter how bumpy the ride gets, you can always stay on track. New business, no problem. Success starts with Intuit QuickBooks. Learn more at QuickBooks.com. QuickBooks Payroll, QuickBooks Payments, and QuickBooks Online account required. If I had told you 2 years ago that there was going to be a player not named 1995 Michael Jordan who went for 6 first-round draft picks, you'd have told me you're out of my mind.
Of course. And, the inflation, man. We're all dealing with it.
Getting us all with everything.
Sure is.
I'm just saying Danny Ainge has moved the damn game down the field.
Yeah.
Well,
And you know what else? You know what else they're probably going to get from this Donovan Mitchell trade? A top 4 or 5 pick in a loaded draft.
Because they're going to be so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the plan. Let's be honest.
And I mean, all these vets that are still on the
Which is
team.
why, by the way, I don't think RJ Barrett is raising any boats. I mean, he's a good player. I don't think, he's a supporting piece. He's not a centerpiece. I don't think that's a controversial take, is it?
And we talked.
But I don't think they're trading for him. I don't think they want him. I don't think they want a guy who can raise. Who can?
We talked.
Get him
No, they don't want a guy who can raise him, and they don't want a guy who is a good player that's probably going to demand a max extension.
I mean, we
talked
a lot,
but still,
right? We talked a lot about Tyler Hero on the pod that disappeared this morning, and it's for the same reason. He's a good player that is about to get paid a lot of money, and if you're the Jazz, that's not really the kind of guy they're going to want for a variety of reasons.
If you're, like I said, if you're Pat Riley, you're sitting there going, "Now wait a minute, I have some young players, Tyler Hero being one of them. We can debate on the value of Max Strus. He's a young player with value."
Mm-hmm. He's also got 1 year left on his deal till he's going to get paid too. Okay. So
fair. That's fair. He's going, they have 2 firsts that they can trade now, but if they make a side deal with the Thunder, they could get a 3rd first that they could do if they change the protection on a 2025 pick. He could get 3 firsts without really going too crazy. He's got to be sitting there thinking, 3 firsts, couple young guys, that's pretty good. Most trade offers of the last decade, that would be pretty good.
Yep.
And it's okay, well, I guess I maybe can't get Durant because that is a potentially historic trade situation. And I might get outbid there. But Donovan Mitchell, I can get. Okay, let me get my old friend on the phone. Actually, I don't think I want to call Danny Ainge.
Well, we're not friends.
David Fizdale, my new good old friend, David Fizdale. We have the same types of rings.
Yeah,
we have
Dwayne Wade in Utah too.
There you
go. It's your old buddy Pat. Hey, come over to Casa Riley. He used to have this freaking giant mansion in Miami. He sold it, but he called it mansion Casa Riley. Come on over. We're going to have strawberry margaritas.
Can we make a deal, Dwayne? Can we make a deal?
3 firsts. Do you know how good 6th man of the year Tyler Hero is? Like they're getting
Not good
hung
enough to
up
be a
on.
starter, just like I said in at the exit interviews, but he's great for you guys.
They're getting hung up on. Hung up on.
Well, look,
And so
this-
here's the
No, go ahead,
situation
man.
though. If you are Leon Rose and you're running the Knicks, you know you have a better offer to make than anybody else. And frankly, it's really probably not that close. Do we agree on that?
100%.
So you can't, if this deal gets done soon, it's because you caved. You've got to be
Well,
patient if you're Leon Rose.
I would say I would not quite look at it that way. I would look at it, to me, in the inverse. As somebody who's been in New York for a long time, if the Knicks don't get Donovan Mitchell now, when they have clearly they have the best package of stuff to get him, there's little doubt about that.
You're
Like, sure,
right.
Oklahoma City could maybe outbid him, but he's not. Oklahoma
not
City's
going
not
to.
going all in to trade for Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks have the ability to trade for a star whose dad worked for the Mets, who's from Westchester County, who would be the best guard. I think you could make a pretty good argument. He'd be the best guard the Knicks have had since Walt Frazier, who, by the way, went in the Hall of Fame 40 years ago and played for the Knicks in the 70s. Like, Donovan Mitchell is not, to me, he's not a top 5 player in the league, but he would be so much better than any of the guards the Knicks have had over the past decades. He's a
Well,
guy that
Jason
wants to be-
Kidd had that one glorious year.
Yes, and he was 42. They didn't get to Jason Kidd when he was with the Nets. That's the thing. They didn't.
He was with the Nets the next year as a head coach.
Well, and by the way, he got traded.
Which was
to the Nets
devastating to the Knicks. It was
and he got
devastating to lose him.
and he got traded to the Nets a decade earlier and beat the crap out of the Knicks every single year and delighted in it as a net. So look, the Knicks 3 years ago had a ton of cap space, all the cap space in the world. We're going to get Kevin Durant. We're going to get stars. It's going to be great. They watch Kawhi Leonard go to the Clippers, take Paul George with him.
How dare you defile Stephon Marbury, the Stephon Marbury era?
Look, Stephon Marbury was a terrific player. By the time he got to the Knicks, things were going off the rails. He's more talented probably than Donovan Mitchell. But look, the bottom line is the Knicks 3 years ago, they were in the position to get stars. They thought they ended up signing Julius Randle and a bunch of role players because Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving went across the East River to Brooklyn. This is their chance. Ever since then, they hired Leon Rose. They traded for all these draft picks. At last month's draft, they traded for 3 more first-round picks, right? They have been positioning themselves, as the man said earlier, they have been positioning themselves to get Donovan Mitchell or
so you're saying
next star.
put
Like,
6 picks on the table?
if the Knicks don't get this trade done,
I'm gonna
just
say,
hold on.
Yeah.
If the Knicks don't get this trade done, this is what gets this whole regime fired.
I'm going to tell you something, McMahon. You're right what you're saying. And we're talking to a New Yorker here because
I'm
But
just
he's
telling
from a
you.
farm.
If my old Bonaventure colleague, Mike Vaccaro at the New York Post, and everybody, Ian O'Connor, all those guys at the Post and Daily News, they're going to be destroying the Knicks all season if they don't get this done.
Like, let's say they get traded. Let's say he gets traded to the Heat. Let's say he gets traded to the Heat for Tyler Hero, 3 firsts, Max Strus, and one of Pat Riley's vintage cars. And it comes out that, well, we just wanted, 1 extra pick, and the Knicks were offering 5 and wouldn't offer 6. Mad Dog Russo would obliterate them. Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, forget Mad Dog. Stephen A. Smith has been begging for Donovan Mitchell for 2 years. He's going to be going on a crusade.
There'd be steam coming out of his ears.
Cool.
And Danny Ainge knows it.
This is true.
And you know who else knows it? The Knicks. The Knicks know it too.
Can I ask a question? What's Stephen A. and Mad Dog and the back page headlines? What are they going to say when the Knicks get bounced in the first round or the play in the next few years?
They'll say plenty of things.
They throw
then
6 picks in.
They'll say plenty of things then. But you know what they won't
I
say?
agree.
They don't have Donovan Mitchell. That's what they won't say. This is the moment the Knicks have been waiting for, to get a star player. This is the star player that's become available that they can get. They have to go get Donovan Mitchell. They have to get this done. And look, Donovan Mitchell has flaws as a player. I don't like the fit of him and Jalen Brunson long term. I think there's issues to be had there, right? But as we've seen many times in the NBA, to get multiple stars on your team, you have to have 1 star. And the Knicks have struggled time and time again to get the first star. They failed over and over and over again to do that. And if they get Donovan Mitchell at 25 years old, a guy that other star players in the league like, that wants to be on the Knicks, the salary cap is starting to shoot up. They're going to have the ability to get salary cap space in the future. They could trade Jalen Brunson. He's on a descending deal. They could trade Mitchell Robinson. They re-sign AJ Barrett. They can move him too. They'll have the ability to clear space and get other star players. But if they don't get a star in the door, they clearly have shown the inability to get other guys. And I'm just saying, as a guy who's lived here a long time, if Donovan Mitchell goes somewhere else because they got outbid when they had the most to offer, it's going to be Armageddon here.
Okay.
And that's what Danny Ainge was thinking.
That's exactly what's going on
after that
here.
draft.
100%.
No doubt.
He had Tim Connolly calling on one line, making offer after offer after offer to get Rudy Gobert. And he was over there saying, how many firsts do the Knicks have?
Mhm.
And that's what was going on in Utah, is that he saw
Yes.
he saw some guys walking into the casino who had just cashed in a whole stack of giant chips and were looking to spend.
Well, and here's the one other thing too, just to put a bow on this Knicks talk, right? If the Knicks have the ability right now to get this thing done in theory, right? Or sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they don't get it done now, it opens up the opportunity for somebody else to maybe come in out of nowhere and make a bid and get them. That's
Who?
not on the board right now.
Who's coming with 6 picks?
I don't really.
5.
I mean, I don't really want to
Who's
start
coming with
saying
4?
like, I don't really want to start saying like hypothetical, like potential Donovan Mitchell trade scenarios, because then we're going to get aggregated and it's going to be a mess. I'm just saying we all agree the Knicks have the most to trade. We know the Knicks should get Donovan Mitchell. If they don't get Donovan Mitchell, there's going to be hell to pay.
And here's
Like, I
something
just
else that
don't think
Danny
it's as
Ainge
simple
knows.
as just be cautious and wait and try to wear Danny Ainge down. That's not going to work.
What you just said, McMahon, about watching the Knicks. What are the columnists going to say when the Knicks are making the play-in? Because they are 6 games out of the play-in last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, they may not have put their best foot forward, etc. They are still 6 games out of the play-in. If Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell help them win eight more games,
If Kevin
that'd be
Durant and
great.
Kyrie Irving are on the Nets, it's going to be hard for the Knicks to make the playoffs if they make this trade. But that's just
Okay.
the truth of it.
But what you just said is another incentive, because whose picks do you want for the next 6 years, 7 years?
Oh, 100%.
Do you want
And so
Miami's picks?
Yeah, you're
Do
going
you
to
want
take
Phoenix's
3.
picks?
So
Or
you're
do you
gonna take-
want
you're
New
gonna
York's picks?
Yeah, you're going to take 3 picks from Miami over 4 from the Knicks.
Historically, having
But
Knicks
what they
draft
want-
picks is pretty good.
What they want
They
is
never get
4
lucky
from
in the lottery,
Knicks.
though, ever.
You want-
By the way, oh my God, I can see it now. The Knicks do this trade and they trade an unprotected pick. And that unprotected pick ends up finally getting their luck.
Finally, the frozen envelope.
It would
Do it
be
again, baby.
amazing. It would be amazing. All right, we got to go to bed. Thank you to Jackson, our producer, for staying up late. Thank you to Bruce, our producer, for staying up late. Thank you to McMahon. Thank you to Bontemps.
But we had one real final thing. We asked this question earlier. Is
He never
the
shuts
Donovan?
up, Wendy.
Oh, well, it was an interesting question just to finish off.
I didn't like my answer earlier, and so I don't want to repeat this.
On the
I'm glad
Donovan
it's not.
Mitchell trade question.
Repeat it.
Well, the
Don't
question
shut
was, is this trade going to happen in the next week?
When we come back next Thursday/Friday, is Donovan Mitchell going to have been traded?
My answer is yes. Again.
I still think it's going to take longer than that. I don't think Leon Rose is just going to throw 6 picks in the pot that quickly. 6 picks plus some young talent.
I think they're going to fight over 5 or 6. I think the Jazz will ask for all 8. The Knicks have 8. Your first call, you're asking for 8, right?
Sure.
And,
They'll ask
and
for
3
everything.
swaps.
Sure.
Right.
They'll ask for everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to bet it's 5. I'm going to bet it ultimately is 5.
Plus young players.
Yes, but not Barrett.
Yeah.
But I'm not ruling out 6. I'm not ruling it out. I don't know where I am by next week. I'm undecided on that. Earlier I said,
What a
thought it
shock. Windhorst again fails to.
The summer of 2022 for the Utah Jazz first-year executive Danny Ainge will truly be one for the history books. Trader Danny is living up to his nickname and is ruffling some feathers along the way. ESPN's Brian Windhorst reported some insight the NBA buzz on how Ainge's counterparts view his dealings thus far. Danny Ainge has moved the game on winning deals, Windhorst said. What he got for Gobert everybody in the league is beaching about, like, can you believe it? I've talked to 10 different people who have beached to me about the trade. When the dust settles, it's possible that Ainge will have acquired as many as 10 first-round picks in exchange for the services of Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, if the latter is actually traded. But why stop there? Now we have a trade rumor connecting Russell Westbrook to the Jazz, and the buzz makes a lot of sense. Westbrook is in the last year of his 5-year contract, where he's owed $47 million in 2022-23. Now for most teams, this would be a simple decision. Keep Westbrook, let the contract expire, and then reload in the 2023 free agent market. The Los Angeles Lakers aren't like most teams, though. LeBron James is in the last year of his contract, and the Lakers don't have time to let contracts run their course. The Lakers will want to make one last run at a title with James leading the way. They need to find a team that's not only willing to absorb Westbrook's $47 million, but also one with the contracts to match his deal. All this while keeping the Lakers competitive in a season that maybe James last in that uniform. The Jazz are a perfect match. Bojan Bogdanovic, Jordan Clarkson, Matt Conley, and Patrick Beverley would all be candidates to be moved in a Lakers-Jazz exchange. This could put the Lakers back in contention, and, at the same time, add to Utah's stockpile of first-round picks that Ainge seems hell-bent on acquiring. Now, the Lakers aren't exactly rich in draft capital. What they can offer gets a little murky until 2026, because of the Anthony Davis trade they made with the New Orleans Pelicans. But it's still plausible that Westbrook could be traded to the Jazz along with future picks in exchange for a salary dump and some assets for the 2022-23 season. If it does happen, don't be in a rush to get your Westbrook jersey. Most likely, the ex-MVP would be bought out and sent to the free agency market to play for a team of his choice. We'll see how it plays out in what is turning out to be an unprecedented summer for the Jazz. Bleacher Report's Jake Fisher floated the possibility of the Los Angeles Lakers trading Russell Westbrook to the Jazz, as certain stars in the NBA universe were to align. If Donovan Mitchell is ultimately moved, and the Jazz are just kind of a wasteland of young picks, or young players and draft picks, there has been increasing talk around the league about teams wondering if the Jazz would be a potential landing spot for the Lakers to send Russell Westbrook, where they could potentially get Patrick Beverley and other salary back, said Fisher. I'm not saying that's been discussed. I'm not saying it's likely to happen, but in theory, if the Jazz in this rebuild, who just won picks, can get 1 or 2 picks from the Lakers to get an expiring contract and buy Russell Westbrook out, it seems like a scenario people around the league believe to at least be plausible. Is a Westbrook to Utah trade imminent? No. Could it be plausible? Sure, but only if the dominoes fall a certain way. It's hard to get a beat on the exact philosophy of Jazz executive Danny Ainge in terms of what comes next. Everything flows from whatever decision is made on the Mitchell front. Stay tuned.